She helped me open every account, then emptied them quietly. She sat beside me in the bank, smiled, held my hand. I told her everything, even where I kept my backup card. She said she wasn't like other girls. I believed her. The worst part? I still hope she meant some of it. My name is Eldon Briggs. I'm 67 years old, and I need to tell you what happened to me in Thailand. Not because I want your pity, not because I think you'll learn something profound, but because if you're thinking about doing what I did, you need to know the truth. The whole truth. Before it's too late. I wasn't planning on recording this tonight, but a few days ago, I opened an email from a longtime viewer of the channel. He said he'd been following along for months, quietly listening to these confessions, and finally decided it was time to share his own. His words weren't polished, but they were honest, painfully honest, and when I read them, I felt a rush of emotions I couldn't ignore. At first I felt shock, that cold jolt of recognition when you realize someone else has lived a version of your own nightmare. Then came sorrow, heavy and familiar, because I could hear the loneliness in his sentences, the same loneliness that once drove me across an ocean looking for comfort in the wrong places. And finally, there was gratitude. Gratitude that he trusted me enough to share his truth. Gratitude that maybe these late-night confessions aren't just me spilling regrets, but a way for all of us to feel less alone. That's why I pressed record tonight. And before I go on, I want to thank you, yes, you watching right now. Please leave me a comment and tell me where in the world you're tuning in from. I read them all, and it means more than you know. And for those of you who keep coming back, story after story, I want to give you a super thank you. You're the reason I can keep opening up like this. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and join the conversation below, because tonight, I need to tell you everything. Let me take you back to where it all started. Mr. Eldon, you look confused, Dwan said, her voice soft and patient. We were standing outside the immigration office in Bangkok, and I was holding a stack of papers I couldn't read. Here, let me help you. She took the forms from my hands and began filling them out with quick, confident strokes. Your visa extension will be ready in 3 days. Very easy. I watched her write, amazed at how effortlessly she navigated the bureaucracy that had been overwhelming me for weeks. Thank you, I said. I don't know what I'd do without you. She smiled. You don't need to thank me, Mr. Eldon. We are friends. That was 3 months after I'd arrived in Thailand, 3 months of struggling with the language, the heat, the endless paperwork. Martha had been dead for 2 years, and I'd finally sold our house in Nebraska. Couldn't bear to stay there anymore. Every room held her voice, her laugh, her absence. My son David called maybe once a month, always rushed, always busy with his own family. My daughter lived in Oregon with her husband. Christmas cards and birthday calls. That was about it. So when my postal worker pension kicked in, I decided to stretch it somewhere warm. Thailand seemed like a place where an old man could disappear quietly and live cheap, but I wasn't prepared for how lost I'd feel. Nothing made sense. The alphabet looked like art. The food burned my mouth. The heat made me dizzy. Then Dwan appeared. She worked at the bank where I was trying to open an account, and she spoke perfect English. You need help? She asked, and I nearly cried with relief. Someone who could understand me. Someone who wanted to help. Your account is ready, Mr. Eldon, she said, sliding the paperwork across the desk. But you should know, if you need assistance with payments or emergencies, I can help you. Many expats, they struggle alone. I looked at her. She was maybe 35, professional but kind, not trying to sell me anything, just offering. That's very generous, I said, but I don't want to be a burden. She shook her head. No burden, I help many foreign friends. It's good for me to practice English, and good for you to have someone who understands Thai systems. We shook hands. Her grip was firm, confident. Call me anytime, Mr. Eldon, I will help you. Over the next few weeks, Dwan became essential to my life in ways I hadn't expected. She helped me find an apartment, came with me to set up electricity and water, translated when my landlord spoke too fast. You are very trusting, she said one afternoon as we sat in my small living room drinking tea. Most foreigners, they are suspicious of Thai people. I sipped my tea and considered this. I was married for 40 years, I told her. My wife Martha always said kindness recognizes kindness. Dwan smiled. Your wife sounds like a wise woman. The way she said it, with genuine respect, made something tight in my chest loosen. She was, I said. She would have liked you. That evening, I realized I hadn't thought about being lonely all day. For the first time since Martha died, I'd gone hours without feeling that hollow ache in my chest. Dwan had filled the silence with her laughter, her stories about her family, her patient explanations of Thai culture. I wasn't falling in love with her. I was too old and too tired for that. But I was grateful. Deeply, desperately grateful. Mr. Eldon, you seem sad today, Dwan said the next week when she found me sitting alone in the coffee shop where we'd started meeting regularly. I'd been staring at a photo of Martha on my phone. Today would have been our 42nd anniversary, I told her. Dwan reached across the table and touched my hand. She is still with you, she said quietly. Love like that doesn't disappear. I felt my eyes water. Some days I forget she's gone, I admitted. I'll turn to tell her something, and she's not there. Dwan's grip tightened. You are not alone here, Mr. Eldon. I promise you that. That night I called her family. The word felt strange in my mouth, but it also felt right. I had no one in America who cared if I ate dinner or paid my bills or remembered to take my blood pressure medication. But here was this young woman who checked on me every few days, who brought me soup when I had a cold, who sat with me when the loneliness got too heavy to carry alone. Maybe family was more than blood. Maybe it was just showing up. 2 months later, Dwan brought up the joint account. We were at the bank, and I was depositing a check from my pension. Mr. Eldon, she said, I want to talk to you about something important. She looked nervous. If something happens to you, if you get sick or have emergency, how will you get help? You have no family here. I nodded. She was right. I was thinking, she continued, maybe we should open account together, joint account. So, if emergency happens, I can help you quickly. Pay hospital bills, call ambulance, anything you need. The idea made me uncomfortable. I'd never shared money with anyone except Martha. But Dwan was looking at me with such concern, such genuine worry for my well-being. I don't know, I said slowly. That's a big responsibility for you. She shook her head. Mr. Eldon, you are like father to me now. You would do this for your daughter, yes? The comparison hit me hard. I would absolutely set up emergency access for my own daughter. Why should this be different? Okay, I said, but just for emergencies. Dwan smiled and squeezed my arm. Of course. Only for emergencies. We filled out the paperwork together. She translated everything the banker said, made sure I understood every document before I signed it. You are good Thai daughter, the banker said to her in English, grinning. Dwan blushed and looked at me. He says I take good care of you. Something warm spread through my chest. Yes, I said. You do. Over the next month, I transferred about $15,000 into our joint account, enough to cover several months of expenses if something happened to me, enough to make me feel secure without risking my entire savings. Dwan helped me set up automatic bill payments, organize my medical records, even helped me buy a decent cell phone. You are learning to be real Thai resident, she joked. In return, I bought her a scooter. A modest Honda, nothing fancy, but it would make her commute easier. When I surprised her with it, she actually cried. Mr. Eldon, this is too much, she said, but she was already running her hands over the seat, the handlebars. You do so much for me, I said. Let me do something for you. She hugged me then, fierce and grateful. You are best friend I ever have, she whispered. I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. The first sign something was wrong came 6 weeks later. Dwan started taking longer to return my calls. When she did answer, she sounded distracted. Sorry, Mr. Eldon, my aunt is very sick. I have to help take care of her. I understood family obligations. Martha had spent months caring for her mother before she died. Of course, I said. Take all the time you need. Is there anything I can do? She assured me there wasn't, that she'd call me in a few days. But days turned into a week. When she finally called, she sounded tired. My cousin also having money problems, she said. Family is very difficult sometimes. I offered to help, but she refused. You have done enough for me already, Mr. Eldon. I cannot ask for more. Something in her voice troubled me, but I couldn't put my finger on what. She seemed distant, formal, like we were strangers again. When we finally met for coffee, she kept checking her phone. Is everything all right? I asked. Yes, yes, she said quickly. Just family stress, you know how it is. But I didn't know how it was, not really. I'd never had a family that pulled at me from all directions. Martha and I had been a team. Self-sufficient. We'd helped our kids when they needed it, but we'd never been caught in the middle of financial drama or medical emergencies that required constant attention. I felt naive and sheltered. 2 days later, I went to withdraw money for groceries, and the ATM showed a balance that didn't look right. I'd expected around $14,000, but the screen showed $11,000. I stared at the numbers, confused. Maybe I'd miscalculated my recent expenses. Maybe the automatic bill payments had taken more than I'd anticipated. I decided to check again the next day. But when I did, the balance was even lower. $9,800. My hands started shaking as I pressed the buttons, requesting a transaction history. There were withdrawals I didn't recognize. Large ones. $3,000, $2,000, $1,500. All in the past 10 days. I drove straight to the bank. My heart was hammering, and I felt dizzy. There had to be an explanation. A mistake in the system. Fraudulent activity that the bank would fix. The manager, a stern woman in her 50s, pulled up my account on her computer. These withdrawals were made with authorized card, she said in careful English. All legitimate transactions. I pointed at the screen. But I didn't make them. I've been home all week. She frowned and typed something. Joint account holder made withdrawals. Miss Dwan. She has full access. The room tilted. Full access? I said. I thought it was just for emergencies. The manager looked at me with something like pity. Joint account means equal access. Both parties can withdraw any amount at any time. I called Dwan from the bank parking lot. She answered on the first ring. Mr. Eldon, I was just going to call you. Her voice sounded bright, normal. Nothing like someone who had just stolen thousands of dollars. I need to see you, I said, right now. There was a pause. Is something wrong? She asked. You tell me, I said. Can you meet me at the coffee shop in an hour? Another pause. Yes, she said. I can do that. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at our usual table, but she looked different, nervous, guilty. I sat down across from her and placed my bank statement on the table. Can you explain this? I asked quietly. She glanced at the paper, then looked me in the eye. Mr. Eldon, I was going to tell you. My aunt, she needed surgery, emergency surgery. I had to help her. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. $8,000. I said. For surgery? She nodded rapidly. Very expensive surgery. And my cousin, he owes money to dangerous people. I had to help him too. I stared at her. You took money without asking me. She looked down at her hands. I was scared to ask. Scared you would say no. But I was going to pay it back. Every baht, I promise you. I wanted to believe her. The alternative was too terrible to accept. When? I asked. When will you pay it back? She looked up, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes that made my blood freeze. Something calculating. Soon, she said. Maybe 2 months, 3 months, my family will help me. But even as she said it, I knew she was lying. The words sounded rehearsed. Empty. I trusted you, I said. My voice came out as a whisper. Mr. Eldon, please understand. In Thailand, family comes first. Always. You would do the same for your children. Maybe I would. But I would have asked. I would have explained. I would have been honest. I want to go to the bank together, I said. I want to see exactly what happened. She hesitated. Okay. Yes. We can do that. But when we got there, she spoke to the banker in rapid Thai, gesturing and sounding upset. The banker responded in Thai, and they had a heated conversation that lasted several minutes. I couldn't understand a word of it. Finally, Dwan turned to me. She says there is investigation about system error. Maybe some withdrawals were mistakes. She will check and call us tomorrow. The banker nodded and smiled at me. Very sorry for confusion, she said in English. We will fix problem. But I didn't believe it anymore. The whole conversation felt staged. Dwan had been too quick to offer to come to the bank, too ready with explanations. And why hadn't the banker mentioned any system errors when I'd been there alone? Why had it taken Dwan's intervention in Thai to discover this supposed investigation? I felt sick, manipulated, stupid. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation Dwan and I had ever had, looking for clues I'd missed. The way she'd insisted on the joint account, how quickly she'd learned my routines, my PIN numbers, my banking schedule, the timing of her family emergencies, right after I'd moved the bulk of my accessible savings into our shared account. I felt like a fool, a lonely old man who'd been so desperate for companionship that I'd ignored every red flag. The next morning, I went to the bank alone. I asked to close the joint account and move whatever was left into a new account in my name only. The balance was 480 baht, about $12. Everything else was gone. The manager looked at me with sympathy but no surprise. I am sorry, she said. Many foreign men have this problem. Trust too much, too fast. I signed the papers to close the account with shaking hands. 40 years of saving. 40 years of careful budgeting and planning for retirement. Gone in 10 days. I sat in my car outside the bank and tried to call my son David. Voicemail. I tried my daughter. Voicemail. I had no one to call. No one who would understand what had just happened to me. I was alone in a foreign country with $12 to my name and nowhere to turn. The weight of it pressed down on my chest until I could barely breathe. I drove to Dwan's apartment. I had to see her face when I told her I knew the truth. I had to look in her eyes and understand who she really was. The door was open, and I could see her through the window, packing boxes, moving out. She saw me approaching and straightened up. No surprise on her face, no guilt. Just calm acceptance. Mr. Eldon, she said, I wondered when you would come. She looked different, harder. The mask was off. Give it back, I said. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. Give me back my money. She continued packing, folding clothes with careful precision. What money? She asked without looking at me. You said there was system error at bank. I stepped into the apartment. Cut the bullshit, Dwan. I know what you did. She turned to face me then, and I saw a stranger. Cold. Clinical. I took what I needed, she said simply. You said I was like family. Family shares, yes? The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. I trusted you. I said, I cared about you. She shrugged. You were kind to me. I needed that kindness, but I never promised you anything more than friendship. I felt my legs go weak. You stole everything from me. She was quiet for a moment, considering this. I took money that was in my account too, she said finally. Joint account, remember? Legal access. Then she stepped closer to me and did something that broke me completely. She hugged me, a genuine, affectionate hug, like she had dozens of times before. You are a good man, Mr. Eldon, she whispered against my shoulder. I hope you find happiness. Then she pulled back and resumed packing. I am leaving Thailand tomorrow. New job in Bangkok. Fresh start. I stood there watching her pack my financial future into cardboard boxes. No apology, no explanation, no remorse, just efficiency. I realized that every moment of our friendship had been calculated. Every smile, every laugh, every time she'd called me family. It had all been an investment in this moment. In these boxes. Why me? I asked. She paused and looked at me with something that might have been pity. Because you were lonely, she said. Lonely people are generous. They trust easily. They don't ask hard questions. She taped up a box and set it by the door. You made it very easy, Mr. Eldon. I left without another word. What was there to say? She was right. I had made it easy. I'd been so hungry for connection, so desperate to matter to someone again, that I'd ignored every instinct that told me to be careful. I'd wanted to believe in her kindness so badly that I'd overlooked the fact that I was nothing more than a mark to her, a target. I considered flying back to the United States that week, but what would I return to? I'd sold the house, closed my bank accounts. My kids had their own lives and problems. I'd have to explain not just that I was broke, but why I was broke. How I'd been stupid enough to trust a woman I barely knew with my life savings. The shame was overwhelming. I couldn't face it, so I stayed. Tom, who owned the Expat bar where I sometimes had dinner, let me sleep on his couch when he found out what had happened. Happens more than you'd think, he told me. These romance scammers, they're professionals. They study guys like you, know exactly what you need to hear. I wasn't sure romance scam was the right term. Dwan had never claimed to love me, never promised a relationship. She'd just been kind until she wasn't. Maybe that made it worse. At least romance scammers pretended to care. I sold my phone, my camera, even Martha's necklace, the one she'd worn every day for 30 years. I pawned it to a gold dealer in Chinatown for 800 baht, enough for a week of cheap meals. As I walked away from the shop, I felt like I'd betrayed her twice. First by being stupid enough to lose our nest egg, then by selling the last piece of her I carried with me. I sat on a bench outside the shop and cried for the first time since her funeral. A month later, I saw Dwan at the weekend market. She was with a Western man, maybe 50 years old, gray-haired and soft around the middle. She was helping him haggle for souvenirs, translating between him and the vendors, laughing at his jokes. The same warm, helpful demeanor she'd shown me. When she spotted me watching, she didn't look surprised or guilty. She nodded at me like we were casual acquaintances who'd run into each other at the grocery store. I nodded back and kept walking. No anger, no confrontation, just acknowledgement. I wrote her name in my notebook that night, then crossed it out with a black pen. It felt like a small funeral. Tom eventually offered me part-time work at his hostel. Sweeping floors, booking rooms, cooking eggs for hungover backpackers. Simple tasks that kept my hands busy and my mind quiet. I sleep in a small room behind the kitchen now. It's not much bigger than a closet, but it's mine. I have a narrow bed, a desk, and a window that looks out onto an alley where cats fight over garbage. It's not the retirement I planned, but it's honest work, and I can pay my own way. I don't date. I don't trust. When other expats invite me to their poker games or beach trips, I politely decline, not because I'm bitter, but because I know myself now. I know how desperate I was for connection, how willing I was to ignore red flags in exchange for companionship. I can't risk that again. I'm too old to start over twice. Some evenings, I sit on the hostel steps and watch the street vendors set up their carts. Young couples walk by holding hands. Backpackers stumble out of bars. Families crowd around noodle stalls. Life moves around me, and I'm content to observe rather than participate. It's a different kind of loneliness than what I felt after Martha died. Quieter, more accepting. I've learned the difference between being alone and being isolated. Being alone is just a state of being. Isolation is what happens when you trust the wrong person with your heart and your savings. Sometimes I wonder if Dwan thinks about me. If she feels any guilt about what she did, if she tells herself stories to justify it. But mostly, I don't think about her at all anymore. She was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. A painful lesson in the economics of loneliness. She taught me that kindness can be a commodity, that family can be a sales pitch, that even genuine care can mask ulterior motives. I feed the cats in the alley now. They expect nothing from me except food, and I expect nothing from them except their presence. It's an honest transaction. No promises, no expectations, no disappointments. Just survival, helping survival. The orange tabby has started sleeping on my windowsill some nights. She doesn't purr when I pet her, but she doesn't run away either. It's enough. If you're thinking about coming here, about starting over in a place where no one knows your name or your history, let me tell you something. It's possible to build a life from nothing. It's possible to find peace in simplicity, purpose in small daily tasks, contentment in your own company. But be careful who you trust with your story. Be careful who you let into your loneliness. Because some people see vulnerability as opportunity, kindness as weakness, trust as profit margin. There's no moral here, just a warning. If you come here hoping to be loved, make sure she's not just building her future with your past. And if you find yourself wanting to believe in someone's kindness so badly that you ignore your instincts, remember that the most expensive thing you can buy is hope from someone selling it. I learned that lesson at 67 years old. Don't wait that long to learn it yourself. The cats are waiting for me to fill their bowls now. Simple needs, honest hunger. I understand that. It's a language I can trust.